So I wander into my office and I look at my messy office desk. Now, my messy office desk 8 hours ago, when I had to drag myself away from it because I was so inspired and I was busy creating, and all this paper was evidence of how awesome I am at creating things. And then 8 hours later, because I've got my overwhelm goggles on, that very same desk, without changing in one iota, all of a sudden is overwhelming because I've got my overwhelm goggles on.
Hello and welcome to A Doctor's View, a podcast looking at everyday health topics and life through a doctor's eyes. Please note that all opinions are my own and should not replace the advice given to you by your own doctor. I'm Dr Bolivios. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to Doctor's View. I'm Dr Bolivios. Thank you for joining today. Today is a rather special episode as it's the first video podcast I've done, and I'll include the link of the video which will be on YouTube in the description above or below depending on where you're listening. I'll start by introducing our next guest, who is a doctor, a psychology graduate, and his name is Dr Giles P Croft. He is a former NHS orthopaedic surgical trainee, and after having a desire to impact the lives of both patients and staff alike, he left clinical practice around 15 years ago to create a career in Health Informatics, managing a national data quality initiative for the Royal College of Physicians. He then moved to a consultancy with a small team working on an NHS patient record system. He's spoken to audiences over the last decade about career change and now runs a coaching business working with individuals to help them manage their life changes by looking, as he puts it, looking upstream at the nature of their moment-to-moment experience. Giles, hello.
Hi there. Thanks for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming. So I've read a few of your articles and seen a few of the outlines of your talks, and they're incredibly interesting, and also a video which I'd seen on your YouTube channel, which I'll link to in the podcast description. And it was actually quite a fascinating thing to watch, and I thought this man's onto something here. So I thought I'd ask a few questions about things, and more importantly as well, as you know, I've done a few episodes on burnout, and wanted to talk more about the leaving medicine side of things. I think it's something that a lot of medics can relate to, and also the general public may not have the same insight, obviously, as we do in terms of why people want to leave medicine. It's often seen as a very glamorous thing, made glamorous with TV shows and exactly, and all these TV programs. So, in a nutshell, can you tell us why you left surgery, why you left medicine?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I loved it. Okay, I absolutely loved medicine, and I loved surgery. And one of your previous podcasts I listened to, I think somebody said it really resonated with me about wanting to provide a level of care and seeing a level of care that was possible.
Yeah.
In a kind of like a gold standard situation.
Yes.
But the resources and the staffing and the way the system works just didn't allow that. And I definitely felt that. I definitely felt that we weren't doing the best for our patients. But for me as a surgical trainee, which is very much an apprenticeship, things changed quite drastically with the European Working Time Directive. So I went from working. So I was one of the doctors who experienced the bad old days and then the new days. And in the bad old days, I used to work all hours that got, I could start an on-call at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning and not finish until 7 p.m. on a Monday. Yeah. But I knew my patients, and my team knew me. The whole working in a firm thing for an apprenticeship like surgery was incredibly important, because you have to build up a level of trust with your team and the people that you're operating with to let you do more and more. And when the European Working Time Directive came in, that kind of went out the window, because all of a sudden we were working shifts, and I was working with different consultants all the time, and so that trust relationship didn't get to build up. So I could see that things were going, like my actual amount of experience was going to take a lot longer than I'd expected. But then, a lot longer for what? Because I think the model, I got to a decision point, and the model that I'd been holding of why I was doing all this, I started to question, because I'd kind of inherited, I guess, a set of values about, well, if I earn a lot of money, I'll be happy. If I have a safe job, I'll be happy. If I have status, I'll be happy. And I got so far along, and I kind of looked around at the people who'd crossed this imaginary finish line that I'd made up. And a load of them were miserable. I mean, some were, but I was surrounded by people who had all the trappings of success. They had a successful practice, they had money, they had the houses and the cars and the holidays and the families and everything, and yet they still were, they were very obviously unhappy. So that just got me questioning, oh, hang on a minute, I mean, we all know that money can't make us happy, and yet I actually saw that. It's like, whoa, hang on a minute, I'd been holding on pretty tightly to that model. So it was, it was easy to let go of that, I think. And I also had something else that I was genuinely interested in the health informatics, not health economics. But
sorry.
So like the management of information in healthcare, because again, that whole thing about, well, I could see a gold standard of how we could help patients. And one of the things that always used to really irk me was the patient notes, and how like they were always missing, or x-rays were missing, or last week's fracture clinic appointment had been dictated but not typed up, so I didn't know what to say to the patient the next week. So and I had a real interest in the information side of things, and I thought I could make have a bigger impact really in the health service by stepping back and doing something a bit more general.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And how long did that sort of take you to realize from, it was over a period of a year, a couple of years to decide to leave?
No, it kind of came around when I was eligible to apply for registrar numbers.
Yeah.
And you and I were talking before the show, weren't we? And you were saying that this is coming up for you. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, do you have to do research as well?
Well, for my specialty, it's not so focused on that. It does help, and I think definitely for the surgical side of things, I know a lot of people who have gone into doing a research to get a training number where they want to go to, which tend to be the more competitive areas. For myself, it's more focused on logbook and exams that you've done. That seems to be the main thing that holds people back. And but yeah, I as I told you earlier, I left surgery myself to do anesthetics, and one of the reasons for that was essentially I wasn't having fun anymore. It was and it's I think work should be fun. It should be enjoyable, and it's where you spend the majority of your life. So and I thought, I love theatre, loved meeting people, but everything outside of theatre was just miserable almost for me. Some people love it, and that's absolutely fine. And so, definitely not so much the research focus. Maybe I should be doing some research, but
well, I'd become eligible. Yeah. And then, I felt like I'd jumped through every single hoop that they'd asked me to. Yeah. Got all the papers. I'd done all the right jobs, even though some of them weren't all that good. Yeah. And then I thought, oh, here we go. I've jumped over all those hurdles, and the next thing I know is like all the people who've jumped over the exact same hurdles but have also done an MD or a PhD, come out of the woodwork and just pick up the numbers. And I was like, no, not even more.
Well, it's become a bit like the schooling system. Like to get into med school, first it was you need 2 A's and a B, then you need 3 A's, and then everyone started getting 3 A's, and there's actually nothing to differentiate between anyone. Everyone's got the same CV, the same same accolades, as it were. And so it feels like now they've had to introduce like A stars or A1s or whatever it is. And if you're just you've got that one extra thing, that's what differentiates you. They've got nothing else to go by anymore. Everyone's so almost equal in terms of their achievements now. And I think that adds to the stress, because you're trying to constantly outdo yourself to some extent. And it makes it very difficult. I think that's something that people don't acknowledge as much, outside of medicine at least, that this whole thing continues the whole time.
It's interesting you say about interviews, because I mean I used to sit on an interview panel for the medical school at Leeds, and if you think back to the way that you got into medical school, you had to prove that you were the most well-rounded person that there was. That you were captain of this team, and you'd played this instrument to grade 8, and you did that, and you did the other, and this was instilled on you that this was incredibly important. This was incredibly important. And then you get into medical school, and by about week 4, they've just kicked it out of you completely. And like, you haven't got 5 minutes to do any of the things that got you in there in the first place.
It's so true, actually. It's so true. It's very, very true. And going on from there, so what steps did you take to leave medicine and then find this new career? Because you've learned, one thing all your life essentially. And
and I think, I mean, I've been talking about career change for a decade now, and I've had many different career changes and watched other people go through things. And really, it basically boils down to enthusiasm and curiosity. That has what has underpinned every single one of my career changes, is enthusiasm and curiosity. And that is honestly enough. So to get into health informatics, which wasn't a thing, by the way, there's no careers in health informatics. To me, it made perfect sense, because I was a junior doctor who had a real interest in the way that I was a bit of I've got a bit of a geeky streak, and I was really interested in the way that we managed information. And the national program for IT was kicking off at the time. And it's like, well, hang on, it makes total sense that if they're going to computerize the NHS, they need some people who work on the front line to help out with that process, surely, so that was that was all I had. That was what I took with me. That's amazing. So I then just started questioning people. So in between cases, I used to sneak off to the postgraduate library, and I'd be reading BMJ articles about health information, most of which I didn't understand, just to try and get a feel for the world of health information. And I'd go and hang out in the information department in the hospital, and I'd ask them, how does it, what opportunities are there for a junior doctor to get in? Oh, there are none. It's not a thing. I even took a day's annual leave once and went to a conference, it was a SNOMED CT conference. I didn't even know what a terminology was, but I went to this conference and I just went around asking people, how does a junior doctor get into this stuff? How does a junior doctor? There is no way. And so I just had no all the time. It still, the enthusiasm was still there, and the curiosity was still there. And it actually happened as a result of there was a rapid response to a BMJ article that I didn't understand, that said, as a junior doctor who now works full-time in health informatics, and I was like, I need to speak to this guy. So I just emailed him and I said, I want to do that. How did you do it? And he said, well, come and see me. And he was part of the Royal College of Physicians Health Informatics unit, and it all just went from there, really.
That's amazing. So it's literally just thought out of the curiosity, this sounds interesting. I need to get onto it, and then just went around and leaving. I mean, to do something like surgery or medicine in general, it's something that you've got to love to want to do and to get into it. And I think when I've been asked to speak to aspiring medics in the past, and they've said, "What advice do you have for them?" And I said, "You've just got to want to do it. As in, it's not a job that you think you might enjoy. You got to. There's a lot of things that come with it, and you've got to want to do it." And I guess my question is, what you must have wanted to do medicine. So, what is it that sort of made you go, "Do you know what? I love it, but this is going to be better." Was there something that made medicine less enjoyable for you, as it were?
I don't know. I mean, I'd never been much of a medic. I'd always shared houses with normal medics and stuff, and so most of my closest friends, when I was a doctor, were like my real core friends. Were non-medics.
Sure.
And it just, I got a few years in, and it's like, and they weren't working weekends, and they weren't working nights, and they seemed to have perfectly good lives, and it just made me start to, and I don't know, I was just curious about the world. It was, I think, for like when I went into medicine, it really was incredibly important to me to see my path mapped out in front of me. But again, that was an inherited value. That was something that my parents had instilled in me. It's really important for you to get a secure job where you know where you're going to be. And like for a long time, that was important. And that was something that I really held on to. And it's just as time went by and I'd done more of that, I just started to get curious about the outside world. And that idea of, would it be possible to do something else? What would life be like? I've got one life. Do I really want to see it all mapped out for me in front of me? And when I asked myself that question, the answer was no. I'm just curious about the stuff. I had a ton of outside interests that I could see were all sort of withering on the vine as I slowly but surely sold my soul to surgery. So it was curiosity, really.
Sure, and I think that's actually quite an intriguing concept. This is just the fact that just from curiosity, you've found a new career entirely. I think that's quite incredible, actually. And did you find the career change difficult from going from? They're very different things. I know they're in the same kind of field, but as in medicine. But did you find transitioning from seeing patients every day, being in theatre, to then being in front of a computer screen? How was that like for you?
The first that first career change was the hardest. I think I sort of did that one by brute force, by sheer strength of will. And people often ask me, what do you miss? And I did. It took me ages to kind of really put my finger on it. And ironically, what I missed after I'd been away for a while was what I disliked the most when I was in it, which was sitting in clinic. I used to hate sitting in clinic. It was like, I want to go to theatre, I don't want to go to clinic. And yet, when I'd left, that was the thing that I missed the most, was sitting in clinic, having a connection with another human being, and finding out where they were at, finding out what their level of understanding of their condition was, calibrating to them in terms of what information I gave them, so that the experience that they had of going through the health system was as painless, smooth as possible, and that's what I missed. But I found another way to do that, because one of the other jobs I had that we haven't mentioned is I went to work for a cycling magazine for. Awesome. I was for 5 years, and I was their medical advisor. And so I used to get questions coming in, and whatever it was, medical conditions A through Z, and then the question at the end was, when can I get back on my bike? So So I found a way. So that for me, that was like clinic. So like, but with a much
Yeah.
greater audience,
Yeah.
because now I found a way to, oh, hang on a minute, I have to calibrate to a much different audience here.
Yeah.
I have to really take everything that I know about medicine and get it out there. Way that's going to be read by thousands of people who haven't had any experience whatsoever of the conditions, and so I just found another way of doing that, basically.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's I mean, going from that to that, and but thinking of what you just said, there's other fields in medicine. Just for any medics listening, they'll be thinking, well, you could be a GP and have that have that environment almost that clinic based environment and achieve all that. Was there anything that made you think, oh, do you know, no, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to do another specialty? Leaving medicine has to be the one, or
No, it was messy, Paul. It wasn't like from experience, these things never is when you're looking at them from the outside.
yeah.
It always looks like, oh, one day Giles woke up, thought, oh, I don't want to do this. I'm going to do that. And it was really messy. I mean, initially, I think I was looking for a way of combining health informatics with orthopaedics as a research project.
Yeah.
And I really explored that route considerably for quite a while. And then when this health informatics job came up and it was a full-time job, I thought, oh, this is a real opportunity to like get in on the ground floor with this health informatics stuff.
Yeah.
And I did even have the opportunity, because I went from being good grief, working in an acute hospital at the very, very top, because I was like senior SHO.
Yes.
So I was top of the pay grade. I was going to take a pay cut if I became a registrar. So
Sure.
I was on the best paid rota at a teaching hospital in an acute specialty. So I was earning mega bucks as a junior. And then and then essentially I went for a university job, and overnight my salary halved.
Really?
Overnight my salary halved. And I was so disappointed when I was offered the health informatics job, because I was like, I was totally honest with them. I said, I don't think I can do this, because it's like half my salary. I just, I've got commitments and stuff.
Yes.
And I remember the professor I was going to work for, he said to me, well, what most people do is they do a bit of A&E work on the side. Because I was, I'd always done that anyway when I was,
Sure.
And he says, so you can do that. And now, for me, that was when I made the decision, because I thought, well, I'm either doing this health informatics thing or I'm not doing it. And so I said, no, I'm not going to do any clinical work at all, because I knew what it would be like. I'd be chasing the money. I'd be doing more and more A&E work, and I'd be doing less and less focused on the health informatics.
Yeah.
So I said, no, all right, I'll suck it up and I'll adjust. So that's when I took to riding my bike all the time, because it just didn't cost much money.
Also, I'm guessing you must have had a lot more time to be able to do it as well.
Exactly. Exactly. And that was a major thing for me, Paul, was these career changes that we go through. They don't have to be the be all and end all. That it doesn't have to be, right, well, I'm going to stop doing that, and instead I'm going to start doing this because this is the answer to everything. No, it's way more subtle than that. It can be as simple as moving from one way of working to another way of working that gives you that bit of breathing space to get your life back, or to actually pursue some other thing that you'd wanted to do. Like for me, it was the psychojournalism. And you're right. You're absolutely right. I had tons of time on my hand. I was working 9 to 5. I had no one really looking over my shoulder. As long as I did the work, they didn't mind if I bunked off at 3 and went riding on my bike if I started work earlier in the morning. So it just gave me that space to then grow a different part of my life.
I think that's important. I think speaking to medics, and also just even from personal experience, when the biggest thing is the not being able to say yes to things like weddings, or just or parties, or booking holidays in advance at a time where you want to, or all these little things. They're all these stresses that we get, and they can make us quite down. And it's only when you then get released from that, you think, oh, do you know, this is, I can't go back to it. Almost, it feels. I think, just when that time where you've taken annual leave, for example, and you just think, I feel like I'm in a different world now. It's just a fascinating thing. I think medics don't acknowledge it at the time, and then when you leave, or you do other things, you realise just how much of an impact it does have on your life. So, no, I was going to ask what advice you have for people who wanted to change their career, and this will obviously lead on to other things. But what advice? So you got someone from medic listening who wants to leave medicine for various reasons, and what would you advise them? How would you go about it?
Well, I think first I'd start to I'd look for evidence that, like, to people like me and other people who've left, to see all they've made changes. Look to other people's stories, because so often we get really blinkered in our current way of thinking, and we tell ourselves a whole load of stories, and we've got those same stories going through our heads time and time again. So I mean, for me, it's always been about getting a different perspective on things, because you kind of, like, you've got to believe that change is possible. If you're wandering around thinking, well, it's never going to change, well, it's never going to change, because you're not going to do anything different, and so nothing's going to change. So you got to get some new thinking going on there, to sort of reignite those creative juices, I guess.
So you think it's that's going to definitely? Do you think that will determine whether or not you stay as well, or?
Well. So I've worked with quite a few medics in my coaching practice, and it's like, for me, it's fairly. People tend to fall into two different categories. There's the people who really want to carry on doing medicine. It's like it's their life and soul, and they really love it, and they want to carry, but they think they can't cope. So they're looking for a way out. So that's one category of person that I've seen and worked with. And then there's the other category who probably shouldn't have gone into medicine in the first place, and deep down they know it.
That's interesting, that one. And do they have a common theme? That group of individuals, in terms of is it a personality thing, or is it an interests thing, or
No, I mean you could say that I fell into that category. It's like, well, I'd just got so far, and it's like, well, it feels like I've wrung all the juice out of this one. It's not my values and who I am have evolved over time. And when I give my career talk, so I talk about rather than a career ladder, I talk about a career onion, and how, like, as the years go by, sort of we peel away the layers of the onion, and each layer of the onion represents the values that we hold. And we start out with the values that we've inherited from our parents. And if we can find something to do that matches up to those values, well, that's when we're fine. And that's when we enjoy our work and our career, and everything's flying. But then as time goes by, you see, I didn't know until I'd worked for the biggest establishment, because isn't it like the biggest employer in the UK or something?
It is, yes.
So I didn't know until I'd worked for the biggest establishment in the UK for X number of years that I have a massive anti-establishment streak. I didn't know that. How was I going to know that? So so we. I mean, if there's one piece of advice I would give to everyone, it's know yourself. It's know yourself. It's really reflect on who you are and what's important to you in your life. and then make sure you're doing something that actually matches up to those values that you hold.
Yeah.
Because after a while, you peel away another layer of the onion, and mine changed from the whole money, status, and keeping my parents happy thing, which, medicine, yay, worked a treat.
Sure.
But then it kind of evolved to autonomy and influence and variety. And just being a hospital doctor just didn't really match up to those values. And so it was time for change. And it didn't really matter what I did, so long as I found something that kind of matched up to influence and autonomy and variety. And health informatics tick the boxes.
So it does. Your transition sort of makes complete sense, actually. And you mentioned in one of the newsletters that I read, it was a sort of bullet points of a talk that you gave, and you mentioned one of the driving factors for leaving was that you wanted to get your life back, in quotes. And did you think? Obviously, you got the more free time and things like that. And was that, as well as the wanting to go into more the autonomy side of things, did that trigger anything to the fact, did you realize that by being in medicine, you weren't able to do so much with your spare time as well?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I suppose working shifts had the benefit of, I could go out riding my bike, during the day, which was good, but there just wasn't enough of it, really. It was like I had all these other things that I wanted to do, and I could, like I say, it was that seeing it all kind of like stretching out ahead of me, and in my fantasies, it like that there was like this rainbow at the end of it of consultanthood and happiness and and all these things.
Sure.
And it was like, well, wake up, Giles. It doesn't really work like that. Happiness is actually an inside job. So it's, go and do something about it.
No, that's fair enough. On that note, do you think it's possible to have had the life that you wanted with that spare time and all the rest? Do you think it's possible to have this life and stay in medicine, for anyone wondering?
It depends what you want. Like, again, it depends what you want. For me, my urge for autonomy was and variety was just such a strong guide. I think too often we ignore our intuitive voice. We ignore our intuition. We've got something that we're pulled towards, and we talk ourselves out of it.
Do you think
and we make a whole load of reasons why we can't do it?
Yeah.
But from experience, that having that direction, having those values, having something that you can feel you're being pulled towards, that's what to take steps. And even if that's creating something within medicine, creating something different within medicine, creating a different kind of service. I met someone at the conference once that I was speaking at, and she was talking about she got like really animated, saying, "Oh, there's a service that I want to provide in my community that nobody's providing yet, and it gets me, it gets me really excited at the idea of it." And I could see, I could feel it. I could feel the energy there. That was what was pulling her forwards, and then the world came crashing back in. Oh, it's just a stupid idea. Oh, it'll never happen. And it's like, so we all have these urges. We all have these values. We all have these things that are pulling us forwards.
Yeah.
But we don't listen to them.
I had the same thought process behind this podcast, actually. So there we go. It took a while to actually get going, because I was thinking, the number of times I sort of was about to order a microphone or this, and I thought, no, this is just, this is not going to work, or it's not going to, and I'm just so glad that other part of me, the one that was, like you said before, curious and determined to get it to work, took over, and that was it.
And it takes one step in the present moment. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
This is a thing, everybody gets really, really hung up on the end product. Really hung up on the end product. And that stops us completely. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. The end product doesn't even exist. The end product's in the future somewhere, and the future's just a thought in our heads.
Yes.
Like what's actually under our noses is the present moment. What can I do? Oh, I know. I can buy that microphone. Right, I bought the microphone. What's the next thing I need to do? Well, I need to think about guests. All right, well, I'll write down some lists of guests, or I'll approach someone.
Yes.
It's always just, all we can do is one single thing in the present moment.
Yeah,
and it all adds up.
I guess it's like reading a book that's 1,000 pages. You can look at it and go, it's 1,000 pages long. I'm never going to read it. Or if you read a page a day or a couple of pages a day, slowly, you will get there. That's my simple mind coming up with something.
Yeah, well, that's so funny because like the exact same thing happened this morning. My daughter was. I don't know why my wife said count to 3,000 or something.
Right.
This is the crazy stuff that goes on in our house. And my daughter was like going, because she's 5, she was like, oh no, I can't count to 1,000. I was like, well, you've counted to 400 or 500 before, haven't you? And she's like, yeah, but I don't know. It's like, mate, you just do like one number at a time and you get there in the end. So about 15 minutes later, we were on about 306. She was at 366, 367. And it's exactly the same. You look at the end product and you think that's never going to happen. Especially when you start looking at other people who've already taken those 3,000 steps. And they've got to the end, and you think, oh well, it's never going to be like that.
So what's the point? That's but actually,
it's never going to be like that because it's going to be how you create it. It's not going to be how someone else creates it. It's going to be how you create it. So,
and also, it doesn't matter. Which I'm guessing is a similar thought process to yourself in that you got to have fun doing it. As in when you're having fun doing it, it doesn't matter if you get 1 view, 10 listeners, or whatever. If you're having fun and you're meeting good people along the way, or you're enjoying something, or you're enjoying your work, doesn't matter. You're actually happy. That's the important thing.
Absolutely, you do what makes sense.
This whole interview and us talking actually came about a video that I saw, and do need
this might have to be a two-parter. This
I know it does transition somewhat relatively smoothly into this part, but I saw a video, and it was you can change your life for as little as 50p. Now I had to click on this, and it was.
Do you like my really clickbaity title?
It was, but at the same time, it kind of did actually follow that title, so I can't knock it too much. And it was like, okay, it's actually it's a philosophy which I've seen people touch on something similar, but never shown in such a sort of palatable way, as it were, and so simply. In actual fact, actually, it made a lot of sense to me. So, on that note, could you just let us know to tell us about the 50p philosophy?
Let us know how it all works.
Absolutely, yeah, because I'm intrigued to listen to it from your side as well. Actually, now, so
well, it's all about It's interesting that you use the word philosophy to describe it, because for me it's simply a description of how we work. It's simply a description of how our psychology works, and we've actually known this since the mid-70s. It's been called many different things over that time, and it's been there waiting for us, and it's all just about how we perceive the world. And the important thing is that we don't perceive the world directly. We know this. We're medics. We've been taught. We've had the neurophysiology lecture where, what was it? I think it was in the 1850s. There was a chap called Hermann Helmholtz who discovered the latency of nerve conduction. And it's like something like 20, 30 milliseconds or something. So, and and from that, he extrapolated that we now know that what we experience as human beings, moment to moment to moment, is our brains creating a picture of what's going out there. It's giving us a best guess, because to you and me, it looks like, I can see all this stuff in front of me, and it looks like I'm looking out through a window. It looks like we're looking out through a window. But there's no light inside our skulls. This is all going on inside our skulls. It's our experience is less like a camera, and it's more like a projector. It's actually being created. So all of the data is streaming in through our senses, and our minds making a best guess, creating a reality for us, so that so we don't get eaten by a tiger. It's trying to keep us safe. It's like saying this is what's going on out in the world.
Yeah,
and it gets tricked. We have illusions. That's how illusions work. That we get tricked by illusions. Our brains can't. And it was a great psychology experiment done once, actually. I remember now. There was a guy who wore some glasses that inverted his field of vision, so it turned everything upside down.
Oh, right.
And it took about 48 hours of wearing them constantly, and then it just flipped, and everything looked normal.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that, actually.
Look that up. I'll look it up, and I'll so that you can. I'm not making it up. I'll look it up.
I believe it. That's incredible. So
and then he wore them for a few days, and then when he took them off,
yes,
his world was upside down again, and it took another 48 hours to revert back to.
That's incredible.
Revert back to normal.
It's incredible. So
our mind creates our reality moment to moment to moment, and it's like why. It's an example I give in the little video that you talk about. It's like you walking down the street and you see somebody that you know, and you wave to them, and maybe you get excited. You get all these feelings. Okay, it's like, it's Bob. It's my mate Bob. I haven't seen him for ages. Oh, Bob. Oh, and then he gets a bit closer. It's like, oh no, it's not Bob. Just kind of like scratching my head, and in that moment, it's not that we kind of guessed it might be Bob.
Yeah.
It's that we actually saw Bob.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our brain was doing the best that it could to create that experience for us. And have you ever had it where you're like you catch something out of the corner of your eye, like a shadow in the evening or something, and your brain goes, it's an intruder. And your physiology reacts accordingly. So you get a whole load of feelings. You instantly go into fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And then when you look more closely, it's like, it's the shadow of the bookcase. And you don't have to do anything to change your state from that.
Yes.
It's just seeing through the illusion, seeing the trick of the mind.
Yes.
All of your feelings just go back to normal. It's like, silly me, there I go, jumping at shadows again.
Then it happens the next day.
Yeah.
Then you see the same shadow.
Yeah, I really must move that. Positioning of that light.
And it was so you mentioned this process, and then the this 50p. Tell me about the 50p.
So the upshot of that is that it looks like the things outside of us are causing our feelings.
Okay.
It looks like things outside of us are causing our feelings. But that's just not possible because of this delay in perception, and the fact that what we're actually feeling is the reality that's been created for us moment to moment to moment by our brain. So we're feeling our thinking. We're feeling, if you feel it, you think it. And if there's a thought, you can think of them as the same thing. You can think of it as thought feeling. Any feeling that you've ever had in your life is as a result of that perceptual process. And when I say thought, I don't mean like a thought or an idea. I mean like the process of thought, the fact of thought, the perceptual process of thought, that endlessly creative moment to moment to moment creation of our reality that's going on somewhere in our heads. And we only ever get into difficulty when we forget that. and it's an incredible illusion. It's how we've been built. It's how we've been made to think that it looks that it's real. Again, go to the illusions.
Mm-hmm.
And we get into trouble when we try and artificially split that and put that feeling onto something else.
Okay.
Onto something else. So, I mean, I can see you right now, but you're not actually here. You are, in reality, you are some dots of light on a screen in front of me. You're just a facsimile of Paul.
Yes.
And any feelings that I'm having right now about this podcast. So I might be nervous, for instance. So I might have been nervous at the beginning of the podcast.
Yes.
Or before we started talking. And it really seems like the nerves are coming from what might happen on the podcast, or maybe some question that you asked me that I can't answer, or something like that.
Yeah.
That looks really real. And I have these feelings of anxiety because of what might happen 5 minutes from now. But that's not real. That's not real. That's a thought that's happening in my head right now, this moment. So I can go ahead and stop worrying about that because I'm feeling thought taking form in the moment. I'm not feeling the podcast. I'm not, the feelings of anxiety aren't coming from what I think about myself or what I think about my abilities to answer questions, or what might happen in 10 minutes, or maybe a podcast I did last week that I messed up and we couldn't release because it was all that stuff comes into the present moment, and it creates the reality moment to moment to moment to moment, and that's what I'm feeling.
So essentially, for want of a better phrase, it's all inside your head, really.
I think it's really important to stress the innocence, because if you say something like it's all in your head, for instance, oh my God, it's all my fault and I'm doing this to myself and da 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 da. No. It's totally innocent. It's just that nobody has pointed out the absolute significance of this simple fact of how our moment to moment experience is being created. That's all. And the more and more people see it for themselves, the worries and the stress just tend to lift a little bit, because they can see actually what's going on in real life.
Could you it's again, this is another sort of simplistic way of looking at it, but could you liken it to, say, watching a horror film, for example? Your brain thinks that you are there, you're scared, you jump, and yet, like you say, pixels on a screen, or it's just it's an image and it's not real, but you think that it's real.
I love it. I love that you brought up the film fanatic, because imagine two people sat in a cinema, right? And they're watching that horror film. They're sat next to each other, temperature's the same, they're eating the same popcorn, they're watching the same film, they've got the same sound, they're sat right next to each other. One of them is crying because they're so frightened by it. And then one is laughing. Well, it can't be the film then, can it?
That's a fair point.
It can't be the film. Also, the film's not real. Again, the film's like a bunch of pixels up on the screen. And so the one thing, the two things that you need to really enjoy a film are an understanding of how film works. Okay, you need to know it's not real, don't you? Because if you did think it was real, you would be sat there, every time someone did, you'd be on the phone to the 999. Yeah, there's a fire.
Yes.
So you have to know it's not real. Okay? And to really enjoy the film, you have to willingly submit to that illusion. You have to let yourself get carried away. Yeah? So the two ingredients for enjoying a film: understanding how film works and willingly submitting to the illusion. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there analysing it and going, oh, that's not real. That's not, oh, I know how they've done that shot. Oh, they're manipulating my emotions by this particular form of dialogue or something like that. So you've got to understand how it works.
Yes.
And you've got to willingly submit to the illusion.
Yeah, I struggle to do that when it comes to medical stuff.
So with life. So with life, Paul. If you want to enjoy life, you've got to see how it works and willingly submit to the illusion. That's when we really start to enjoy ourselves.
So this is the key, I guess, in terms of this principle. I won't use philosophy anymore. It's,
excellent principle. That's my man.
So this 50p principle that you have, and obviously you've chosen a 50p, but it's
the thought feeling connection. For me, that's the thing, is the thought feeling connection, that 100% of our felt experience is mediated via thought.
Yeah. And it does, the way you've explained it, actually it does make sense. It's something that we allow ourselves to do, like you say, with the films, and we accept it. But it seems to be in other areas of life where we're completely void of having this connection at all. And I think that's where people can get into trouble in life. And that's where I was going to ask, how do we use this principle that you've talked about to better our lives, to help with depression, to help with jobs and just everyday things that get us down, or that we think we can't cope with?
I think the key is to just look in this direction. From all the work I've done with people, the more people look to this, because this is what I call upstream. In my video, I talk about upstream, don't I? And I said it in my description.
Yes,
it's upstream. We're looking at the actual human experience. What's actually, and everything else flows downstream from that, really. So looking to this, so that I know, for instance, when I wake up, because we can't stop thought. We can't really change thought. It's exhausting trying. Our feelings, they come and go. They're like weather. It's like clouds in the sky. They come and they go. They don't affect the sun or the sky or anything. Yeah. So if I, for instance, wake up in a bad mood, okay, it's almost like before I've realised it, I've reached out, and just as I'm waking up, I've put on, or let's say some overwhelm. Let's say I wake up feeling overwhelmed at everything. So without realizing, I've put on my pair of overwhelm goggles. That's my state of mind. That's the particular flavor that thought is taking in the moment. Now, if I'm wearing those overwhelm goggles, and I don't recognize that I'm wearing overwhelm goggles, everything I look at is going to overwhelm me. So I wander into my office and I look at my messy office desk. Now, my messy office desk 8 hours ago, when I had to drag myself away from it because I was so inspired and I was busy creating, and all this paper was evidence of how awesome I am at creating things. And then 8 hours later, because I've got my overwhelm goggles on, that very same desk, without changing in one iota, all of a sudden is overwhelming because I've got my overwhelm goggles on. And so the thing to do is to see that I'm wearing a pair of overwhelm goggles. It's not to get caught up in the overwhelm itself. It's to see, oh, I remember, it's a trick of the mind. It's a trick of the mind. I think that my feelings of overwhelm are coming from the desk and all the papers on my desk, but they can't. So if there's one thing to do, it's look in this direction and ask yourself the question. That's the question I ask myself most often is, where do I think my feelings are coming from right now? Where do I think my feelings are coming from right now? And if the answer is anywhere other than thought in the moment, then I know I'm onto a loser. Because that's the only place the feelings can come from. Is that process of thought taking form in the moment.
That's really nicely explained, actually. I never thought about that in terms of the desk thing. Resonates quite well with me, actually. So and you sort of revising or doing whatever, and at the time you books everywhere and
Yeah.
and this, that, and the other, and it almost now I've got all this kit everywhere, and I think this is great, it's doing well, recording this and then gonna come back to it and be like, oh, it's a messy room, but,
Yeah.
and you forget what's actually led you to that point, actually.
Yeah.
And that it's actually something you wanted to do at one point in time, and it's going to provide you enjoyment later on too, perhaps. And you talk to a lot of other people. I know you speak to medics as well, and part of your tell us a little bit about what you do now. I know you do a lot of helping, coaching, and can you tell us a bit about that?
It's kind of circled back to being back in the healing profession in a way, because when you're working upstream at the actual human experience about what's going on, people are caught up in this misunderstanding. Like totally innocently. Again, I want to say this is it's totally innocent. It's because nobody has told us. Nobody has told us that this is the way it works.
Yeah.
This is how psychology works. In 200 years' time, Paul, we'll look back and we'll go, can you, just like we did, with germ theory. There was a time when we didn't know that germs cause disease.
Yeah.
And so if you'd gone back in time and if I sent you back in time and I was like, Paul, you've got to convince them that there's these invisible things called bacteria that are actually caused, and it's not bad smells, and it's not long distance travel, and it's not miasmas and all this stuff. They lock you up in the loony bin. But mark my word, we will look back in 200 years time and we'll say, can you remember? Back in 2019.
Yeah.
They thought that they hadn't yet seen the principles of psychology, which is that their feeling state is coming from their thinking state, that their thoughts and their feelings are inseparable. We will.
That's really interesting. I'm sure it will happen. With a lot of things that we do, I think they'll look back and be like, they're still chasing that pipe dream, back in the day.
There's so many discoveries we're making all the time. We've barely scratched the surface.
I know.
Barely scratched the surface. So I work. It's like whatever people come with.
Yeah.
By understanding their experience of it.
Yeah.
One of the most beautiful things was a registrar who came to me, who was thinking of leaving. She didn't feel she was a new registrar in an acute specialty and wasn't coping, and was really worried about her skill set and whether she was good enough for it. And she was one of those people who fell into the category of, she definitely wants to do it. She's like, I'm thinking of leaving. And it didn't take very long at all. It's like, you don't really want to leave, do you? She's like, no, I don't want to leave, but I think I might have to leave. I'm like, you don't have to leave. Let's have a look at our experience here. And so we spent an afternoon talking about this stuff. She read a book afterwards, and I think it was about a week later, she sent me a text saying, why did nobody tell us this?
That's lovely. That's really nice.
And leaving is the last thing on her mind now. Now she's busy telling all of her colleagues about this.
Wow.
So
that's really nice, actually.
And it's a vision that I have for the NHS. It's, I want to give back to the NHS. I'm painfully aware that I'm making all of these comments outside of actually working as a doctor. But there's a group of us who have this understanding, who have come together, and we want to get this understanding into the NHS, so that every member of the NHS has this understanding for themselves, and therefore for their patients. Because when you can see that at your core, fundamentally, you're okay, that you've got innate health, you've got innate well-being, that you're sitting in the middle of mental health. If you can see that for yourself, then you can see it for everybody around you. So that's what we want for the NHS.
I like that. You're okay. I think that's a nice it's a nice thought to have to yourself every now and then. That's actually quite poignant. And do you get to see? I expect you do, people with work-related burnout, not just doctors, but others as well. And I take it you apply the same principle, or do you tailor it slightly? Obviously, everyone's going to be slightly different, but is it a similar discussion?
Everyone comes with their own story. We've all got like a bazillion different things happening to us.
Sure.
But if we can understand that life isn't happening to us, it's happening through us, that just takes all of the pressure out of the situation.
Yeah.
And there's a great book that I recommend that medics listening to this read, which is called How to Turn Stress on Its Head by Rani Bora. And she's an NHS psychiatrist who has this understanding of the thought-feeling connection. And it's a number of case histories of people in the NHS who have suffered from burnout, who've been led to see this for themselves and are now busy sharing it with other people because they're back at work, functioning happily.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll put a link to that book in the description of this. And I was gonna finally, knowing what you know now, you've got the I will say secret to psychology here in a way. We've got this principle of our understanding of how our thought process works and how our feelings work. Knowing all of this now, and if you go back in time, as you said to me, would that have changed your trajectory on certain things? But even something simple like not leaving medicine or doing other things with it, or not?
I don't know. Because you asked me this question before, so I've been ruminating on it, and I have asked myself the question before. If I knew what I know now, would I have left? And I don't know, but I think if we look at the different, like I said, the different types of people I've seen who've come to me, who kind of fall into those categories. I think I fell into the category of being curious about other things, and so I may have left even sooner.
Fair enough. No, I just curious, really, and no, that's wonderful. Thank you. And you've got some talks coming up. Please do tell us about them.
I speak at the BMJ Careers Conference every year. It's got a different name now. Well, it's been subsumed into a BMJ Live. So the BMJ Live conference in the beginning of October, first weekend, I should be speaking about career change and also a talk on well-being. Okay. That's two different talks I'll be giving, both the Friday and the Saturday. I've been invited to speak at the Crick Howell Literary Festival, which is at the end of September. That's also a talk on well-being. And then I'm speaking at the Joyful Doctor Conference, which is also in October. And you can get, I'll give you links, but I've got a Facebook page, which is Facebook/Doctor. That's Dr Giles P Croft. If you look me up, Giles P Croft, you'll find me. I'm on Twitter as well. And the events section there has got a list of all the events that I'll be speaking at shortly.
That's wonderful. I'll put links to them as well in the description. Okay. Anyone listening can have a click on those and go. And it's open to anyone, I take it.
The Crick Howell one that's in South Wales, here where I live. I think the Joyful Doctor one is I'm not so sure about BMJ Live whether you have to be. No, I think anyone can go to that. I don't know.
I'll check and find out. Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously very medical. It's medical oriented because it's the BMJ. So, but I think people can. Yeah.
Sure.
You just have to register.
That's lovely. And is there anything, any other sort of points that you wish to let us know in terms of this principle, and also just the things that you've learned from talking to others through your clinic and your coaching, as it were? Is there anything that you've picked up on that you think you wish you have to share with people?
I think just at the fundamental level, we're all the same. We're all having exactly the same experience. The way that our experience has been created is exactly the same across the board, all 7.7 billion of us on the planet.
Yeah.
And understanding how that experience is created is, for me, it's just the most leverage I found, that's all.
Yeah.
Problems that seemed like problems are no longer problems when you understand it.
That's a really nice way of looking at it. Thank you. And I must say, I found it extremely enlightening, this whole conversation. I actually look forward to utilizing these techniques actually later on in life for any problems. So, Giles, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, absolute pleasure. And as I said, I'll put links in the description below and or above, depending on which platform you're watching this on or listening to it on. And please do subscribe. And I think, Giles, you have a YouTube page too?
I do. It's only got that one video.
It's only got the one video. Well, I'll put a link to it.
There's a whole. I've got like a Facebook group that I've got a whole load of Facebook live videos in about this. So, and I shall probably start porting those over to YouTube at some point. Or I might just create some new ones. Who knows? Wonderful. I'll do what makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and hope you can join us again another time. Actually, talk about things again. Lovely. Right. Thank you, Giles.
Thanks, Paul. Bye-bye.
Bye. That was Dr. Giles Croft, and explained to us how even some of life's most difficult and complicated problems can be solved with even the most simplest of principles. And for that, I thank him. It's definitely a technique that I'll be using in my life, and from now on, it's actually quite remarkable the way he puts it. So thank you. If you are new to the show, please do subscribe. Please leave a like and a review on iTunes. It really does help me out a lot. And for returning listeners, thank you for joining us once again. Please do email me with any topics that you'd like me to discuss at adoctorsview@gmail.com, and also visit my website. You can leave a comment there at adoctorsview.co.uk. With that, I'll leave you, and I look forward to joining you again next time. I'm Dr. Bolivios. Goodbye.